Have you ever just stood in a bookstore or scrolled online and felt completely overwhelmed by all the diet advice out there? Well, you're definitely in the right place. Today, we're going to try and decode this whole diet maze, giving you the tools to find a clear path forward. Seriously, it's like a never-ending buffet of options, right? Low carb, point systems, meal replacement shakes, each one shouting that it's the answer. It's enough to make you just want to give up and order a pizza. You're not alone in feeling that way. So let me be clear about one thing. Our goal here isn't to pick a winner or tell you which diet you should be on. Nope. Instead, what we're going to do is build a kind of mental map, a framework that you can use to understand and, really evaluate any diet that comes your way. So you have to wonder, why is this industry so huge? Well, it's kind of like a perfect storm. Our lives are more hectic than ever, so we're looking for convenience. Then you walk into a grocery store and you're just bombarded with confusing choices. And let's be honest, most of us never really got a solid education in nutrition. That whole combination creates this massive demand for what seem like easy prepackaged solutions. Okay, so before we even start looking at specific diets, let's get you set up with your own personal toolkit. Think of this as your practical checklist, something you can use to cut through the marketing hype of any program that catches your eye. Here it is, your 6-step plan. First up, you gotta understand the concept. Like, what's the big idea behind it? Second, gather information. Go to their websites, read what they have to say. Third, read reviews, and I mean real reviews from real people. Fourth, check for drawbacks. Are there any red flags for your specific situation? Fifth, assess the support. Is there anyone there to help you if you hit a wall? And last, but honestly, this is the most important one, consult a doctor. This step is absolutely non-negotiable. All right, now that we have our toolkit, let's start using it. You can take pretty much every diet out there and group them into one of 4 main categories, or as we're going to call them, 4 flavors. It just makes the whole landscape a lot easier to navigate. So our first flavor is all about a specific nutrient. These are the diets that have one major rule. They either tell you to pretty much eliminate something, like carbohydrates, or they tell you to make sure you're eating a whole lot of something else, like a certain type of fat. And this is what's so wild about this category. You can have 2 completely opposite ideas living under the same roof. On one hand, you've got a classic like Atkins, which is all about cutting carbs way, way down to lower your insulin and stop storing fat. But then, on the other hand, you've got something like the flat belly diet, which says the secret is actually to eat more fat, specifically these monounsaturated fats, with every single meal. Okay, flavor number 2 is all about the system. For these diets, it's less about these specific foods you're eating and more about tracking everything within a very clear structure, like using a point system or sticking to a really strict calorie count. Weight Watchers is probably the most famous example of this, right? Their ProPoints system basically turns food into numbers. Everything you eat has a point value, you get a daily budget, and your job is just to stay within that budget. It's a very structured, very numbers-focused way to approach eating. And here's another even simpler take on a system-based diet. This one boils it all down to a single number, 1,400. That's your daily calorie target, period. And it's combined with a workout plan. In this case, the system is just that one hard and fast number you have to hit every day. Now, our third flavor, this one's a little different. It's less of a diet and more of a philosophy. The whole point here is to change your habits for good by actually teaching you about food and how it affects your body, and it's almost always paired with exercise. This quote here really gets to the heart of it. Just listen to the language. It's not a diet, it's an education process. The entire focus is on helping you understand the why. Which foods spike your insulin? Which foods lead to fat storage? It's about empowering you with knowledge. Exactly. So this isn't about someone telling you you can never eat bread again. Instead, it's about learning the science behind what's on your plate so you can build a healthy lifestyle that you can actually stick with, instead of just following a bunch of temporary rules you're going to break anyway. And that brings us to our fourth and final flavor, high intervention diets. These are the programs that rely pretty heavily on outside help, things like supplements, hormone shots, or maybe even fully prepackaged meal plans. And this category has a huge range. You've got the super controversial HCG diet on one end, which involves hormone injections and a crazy low calorie count. Then in the middle, you have all those over-the-counter supplements, which are, well, they're mostly unregulated. And then you have meal replacement programs, which give you a ton of structure and personal support, basically taking all the guesswork out of your meals. So we've walked through these 4 very different flavors of dieting. Now, what does this all mean for you? Where do you go from here? Let's bring it all home. So what have we learned? Okay, first and most important, there is no magic bullet, no single best diet for everyone. Your goal is to find what works for your body. Second, please use that 6-step toolkit we talked about. It's your best defense against flashy promises. Remember, making an informed choice is making an empowered choice. And finally, and I'm going to say it one more time because it's that important, always, always talk to a doctor or a registered dietitian before you start anything new. I'll just leave you with this final thought to chew on. What if this whole quest to find the best diet is just the wrong quest? What if the real goal is to take all this information, to truly understand your own body and your own life, and then use that knowledge to build an approach that's right for you and only you?